Sounds great. Well, my name's Noah Harper. I'm project managing on the project at JM Goldson, and our founder and project director Jen is on the line as well. I'm going to share my screen and then I'll pass it over to Jen to kick us off.
Yeah, and while
Well,
Noah's doing that, we're really pleased to be here for your kickoff meeting. We have a little bit to go over, just logistics with schedule and our approach and that kind of thing that we want to talk about. But really, we want to mostly hear from you. Thank you for taking the questionnaire. What we do with your questionnaire answers is Noah has populated your answers. They didn't call out like, oh, Carol said this. Um, Basically, we combine them and put them into themes as a way to just spark some conversation. One of the things we really like to do at the very beginning of a project is just understand where you're at. What are your hopes for the project? Why are you even doing this? What is your main objective? And it could be different for each of you. And then what are you curious to learn? The questions that we asked you. So we're gonna just facilitate a conversation with you mostly. But yeah, Noah, are you able to share
yeah.
your screen or do you need co-host?
Yeah, Samantha, could you add me or add that permission for me? And maybe in the meantime, Jen, we can just go ahead and introduce the project team before we introduce
Yeah.
everyone else.
That's a perfect idea. So I'm Jen Goldson, founder and managing director of JM Goldson. I founded JM Goldson 18 years ago, sitting around my dining room table, thinking I could do this. And 18 years later, we have a team of 8 very passionate planners. Noah is among our planners, and he's a very talented project manager as well as critical thinker. And if you're interested in reading his blog, he also writes a blog. Um, so that's us. And Noah, why don't you give a better description of yourself and then we can pass it off to Lynn.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Jen. I've been with the firm for about a year now. Before that, I worked over at the T in transit-oriented development, all about building housing near stations. But now I work in housing more broadly, mostly on housing production plans. I've done a plan over in Revere and Danvers, and we're working in Worcester out now as well as the Cape. So it's really fun to learn so much about different communities and find the similarities, but also the differences. And the fun part of the job is a little bit of data analysis, community engagement, research, and I always enjoy the strategic part too. So it was fun reading your responses, and we're looking forward to going over that. I'm going to pass it over to Lynn. Lynn, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, great. Sure. Hi, I'm Lynn Sweet. I'm a principal, the principal at LDS Consulting Group. We're a 25-year-old real estate consulting firm that focuses on planning, permitting, financing. So we are going to be working on this project. Our focus is we do a lot of market research. We do a lot of demographics. We also do a lot with numbers. So we're hoping to take the data that we're learning and try and see how it can help the community work on affordable housing developments with a financial, both a research and financial perspective. So really happy to be working with the team and working with Jen and Noah.
Yeah, and we're really thrilled to have Lynn on board. I think she's going to add a lot to the project. So let's go to the next slide, Noah. So today we'll focus on just some introductions. We just did a little bit, but we want to do a better introduction with all of you. We want to understand a little bit more about you and where you're coming from. So we'll spend a little time on that, and then we'll go over the scope and schedule of the project so you know what to expect. And then we'll discuss your responses to that questionnaire and facilitate some conversation, and then go over next steps. And just so folks know, I do have a hard stop at 7. I think Noah could stay on a little longer. We don't want to cut the conversation short. If needed, I just have to hop on another call at 7. All right, let's get into the next slide. So in terms of introductions, what I really love to do is rather than just do a what's your name and affiliation, I'd love to also learn what's one word you would use to describe Wakefield. And it could also be a phrase, but it's not a sentence. So it's a word or a phrase. And then what's at the heart of the matter when you think about housing in Wakefield? So very general question. You can go in lots of directions. We didn't put a positive or negative spin on that. It's pretty neutral. What's at the heart of the matter for you? And The real challenge is going to be a listening challenge because I don't want to hear any repeats, and the last person's going to have the hardest job. And I'm sure we can do it. I'm sure we can think of different things to say here. So you can state your name and affiliation. That's always super helpful. I mean, we can read your names, but yeah, affiliation is really helpful. And then we'll leave this up. What's one word or phrase? And just do one word or phrase, because otherwise you're going to steal ideas that someone else might have, and it'll be harder for them to think of something. So just think of one. And then what's at the heart of the matter for you? And just try to think of one. If you can think of like 10 things at the heart of the matter, try to pick the most important one for you. So you leave some chance for the rest of your colleagues here, your committee members here, to come up with different ideas. All right. Does that make sense? Anybody have a question on what we're asking you to do? It's your first exercise. We love exercises. All right. So I'm going to call on you in the order I see you. And Samantha, I should ask, as staff, sometimes staff would like to participate and we would completely support that. Other times staff feel like, I'm here to observe and support the team, or the committee, but I'm not here to participate. Totally your call. What would you prefer?
I am just here to listen today. I think as time goes on, I'm happy to engage and kind of share some background information with what we're going through on the planning process. But right now, I really want the advisory committee to and y'all to be able to get to know each other and kind of get some background. So if I do need to jump in, I'm happy to. But I'm mostly here just to take notes.
Perfect. Exactly why I asked. Thank you, Samantha. All right. So I see Karen DeJoy first, and then Karen McMaster second. So Karen DeJoy go first, and then Karen McMaster can be waiting in the wings. And we just need you to unmute there, Karen DeJoy.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay, so my name is Karen DeJoy. I am a commissioner on the Wakefield Housing Authority. My background was 30 plus years in housing. What I would describe Wakefield as a community.
Community. Love it.
A community, yes. What I'd like to see for housing as it is, if we're building housing that is affordable for our residents, whether for our elders, for our veterans, especially our veterans and our elderly. Families are definitely in need of it, but if we're developing this for the town of Wakefield, that it has to be affordable. And, if you're developing housing that's not affordable, this community, my children can't afford to live here. So what I'd like to see is, definitely, you want sustainability, you want to continue the community, but I know for the housing authority and myself personally, that, we want to see that you're expanding services for those that really need it.
Great. Thank you, Karen. All right. So I'm hoping Karen didn't take too many other ideas. So try to keep your comment to one concept, even though I totally get that these things are all interrelated and it's really hard to stop at one concept. But let's try it out. Karen McMaster's next, and then we're going to go to Alex Convino. And if I don't say someone's name right, please correct me.
Hi, Karen McMaster. I'm going to say the word town when I come to describe Wakefield. The other Karen, she kind of hit. So I was a social worker for Mystic Valley Elder Services for many years before I had to leave for financial reasons, as you know, as a social worker. Affordable elderly housing is kind of overlapping a little bit, but I've seen over the years, my mother would love to be able to sell her home and move somewhere and open up the inventory for single family homes that people could actually buy because there's such a low inventory. So this is really huge for me because I am still a believer in that we need houses, not just developments. And I have other things, but I don't want to take things away from everybody else, so I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you. All right. So we have community and town as the 2 words so far. And first Karen wants affordable housing built for elders and vets. Second Karen wants affordable elderly so that folks can really downsize, opening up single family homes for others. So
Yep.
similar points, but little different nuances. Thank you, Karen. All right. We've got Alex next, and then we're going to go to Sam.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Covino, citizen member. I'm a realtor and landlord in town. My word to describe Wakefield right now would be evolving and heart of the matter. From what I see day to day in my work is that first time buyers, whether they be young, old, single, a family, just have a really hard time. You do all the right things, still can't get into this town. And it used to be a town kind of for everybody, and it's now pretty inaccessible, unreachable to most of the clients I work with.
Okay, I love the way you describe it. Used to be a town for everybody, and now you're feeling like it's the entry into the town is different. It's harder. Thank you. All right, Sam is next, and then we'll go to Theo.
Hi, Sam Hockenberry. I am a renter in Wakefield. And for word, I'm going to say new to me. I've only been in Wakefield for about 2 years now, which is a little bit of time, but in the grand scale of how lots of communities, you're not really from there unless you're third generation. Like it's so I'm gonna still say new to me, but the heart of the matter, I'm gonna say opportunity. So opportunities for people, I think meeting what different trying to match different needs, but just trying to provide opportunities.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful, Sam. All right, Theo, you're next, and then we'll go to Carol.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I'm Theo Knoll. I'm the planning board representative to the housing production plan, and just a neighbor in town. Professionally, I'm a banker. I help finance affordable housing, and that's I think really my interest in planning and my interest in giving back to Wakefield. So the one word I would use to describe Wakefield is inclusive. And at the heart of the matter, I would say complicated.
Can you elaborate on complicated?
Well, it's given all of the difficulties with lack of housing stock, housing prices, the perceived pressure of development, and the stresses that puts on a community. That all of those pressures really work against feelings of welcoming or community or inclusion. So
yeah, thank you. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, Carol's next, and then we'll go to Dawn.
Everybody, I'm Carol Plotkin. I'm the representative from the Council on Aging on this group. So I'm delighted to hear that people have brought up seniors on a couple of occasions. The word that I would have for Wakefield is growing, with the associated growing pains. I'm not sure always what direction it's growing in, and that will be, I'm sure, as part of the strategic discussion. And then the heart of the matter is stability. For seniors, for a lot of people, my background is in running inpatient psychiatric hospitals, so I understand about the needs for housing. In fact, I was once asked on a panel, what if I could have $1 million to solve the mental health crisis, what would I do? And I said, build housing. So here I am, sort of full circle, which is really exciting.
Thank you. What a great perspective. I appreciate that, Carol. All right, Dawn is next, and then we've got Doug.
Unmute. Carol, did you say you won the lottery? Oh, what happened? Can you hear me? Uh-oh, I can't hear anybody.
Did you
Oh,
did you ask me a question, Dawn?
Yeah, I said, did I hear you say you won the lottery?
No, but that would be nice. But if you have any tips, I'd love them.
just trying to make a joke, but I moved from Melrose to Wakefield about 25 years ago, and I was only going to stay here for 6 months, and I never left. And I love the town very much. One word to describe Wakefield to me would be crossroads. It seems to be a lot of people that are, maybe middle-aged and older. Think of Wakefield as how it always was, and it's changing, and the new Wakefield is coming in. So that's my one word. And the heart of the matter for housing is I just want to help out. It's a big problem. We read about it in the paper, the news every day, and it's just something that's very important. And I'm just here to help any way I can. So this is my start here in Wakefield. So
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. Every community needs folks who are willing to help. So thank you. All
sure.
right, John. We've got Doug, and then we have Lorna after that.
I feel like the poor second person on Family Feud that is going. I would say, sorry, Doug Butler. I'm currently just recently elected this past year to the town council, and I'm one of the 2 town council representatives on the board. The one word I'd just use to describe Wakefield right now is, I think a couple of mine have been used, but adapting. And it's that we're sort of figuring out where we are, and we have changed a lot over the last 30 or so years. I've only been here 20, but what's at the heart of housing for me in Wakefield? It's focusing on both affordability and able for people to get in, but also on really revitalizing our downtown. And sometimes those are in tension with each other.
Can you describe the tension a little bit more to me?
Well, I think there's a desire to one of the perils of wanting a vital and, attractive market for businesses in a downtown suburban community is that people have to be able to live there. And right now, we don't have a plan in place that is effectively bringing people to our downtown. We've built a lot of development on the outskirts, but not, there's been more in the heart, but not as much.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay, Lorna, and then we have Liz. Oh, Liz is from LDS. Sorry, Liz. I didn't recognize you. So we're going to go to Lorna, and then we'll go to John. Lorna, you've got to unmute.
I'm Lorna Davidson Conley. I'm the rep from the Commission on Disabilities. Try to think of one word of Wakefield and can't pick just one, so it's pretty difficult. I'd say it's pretty town. The heart of the matter is affordable housing, of course, but affordable and accessible housing, especially for people with disabilities, is a main concern of mine and also of the Commission on Disabilities. Also, I just want to mention, I don't know what questionnaire you're talking about because I never got one.
Oh, you didn't get it. Can folks just raise you just use your real hand. Just raise your real hand if you got the questionnaire we sent. Okay, so it was sent by email, Lorna. I'm not sure. Did it come from Samantha or
I think
Noah?
it came from me last week, maybe on Tuesday.
Sometimes when your email doesn't recognize,
I have to check in spam.
yes, because sometimes if it sees it like a business that you've never had an email from before, it might send it right to spam. So
Yeah.
maybe if you can find Noah, or maybe Noah, reach out to Lorna, and so she can have your contact and put that in your contacts, and then it should allow that to get into your inbox in the future.
Or people can also reach out to me, and I'm happy to work on helping to connect everybody as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Samantha. All right, very good, Lorna. Thank you, and I'm glad you brought that issue up with
Well, I think the email did go to an AOL.com email address. that I see in the email that I have.
To Lorna, an AOL email to Lorna.
Just make sure that's the right one he should have for you.
Okay, great. I'll count on you, Samantha, to sort that out, make sure we've got the right ones.
Yeah,
All right.
it probably did. I mean, it's just that I don't normally check spam because it's just like, somebody's
I
got to
get
tell
it.
me I got something to check spam because I just don't normally check spam anyhow. It's just too much spam in there to go checking all the time.
I get it. That happens to me too. All right, so John, you're up next, and then we'll close it out with Julie S.
Hi, I'm John. Word to describe Wakefield would be family oriented. Heart of the matter for housing in Wakefield is kind of two-part for me. The first being kind of what the definition of affordable housing is as far as this committee is kind of concerned. We just use the term affordable and workforce pretty often, but I'm not sure exactly what that all encompasses here. And then secondly, wanted to look less into development and figure out if there's any, state and local subsidies and things for current housing that exists that could be switched over to affordable types.
So converting existing housing stock to affordable.
Correct.
And when you say as defined through this process, are you talking about housing that would then count on the subsidized housing inventory and be affordable to 80%?
Yeah, just if we're talking like 80%, 60, 30, workforce housing, elder, all that, just what we're actually looking to focus on, or if it's more of a broad topic.
Yeah, well, I can answer that very quickly for you just as a general answer, and then this committee and the community will need to give some guidance. You for a housing production plan, you do need to focus on SHI housing, but you can also focus on other types of housing, more specific. It could be more deeply affordable. It could be, which of course also counts on the subsidized housing inventory. You could focus on higher incomes if your needs assessment supports that. You could focus on housing diversity, accessible housing that could be affordable. It doesn't have to be affordable. So you could focus on all sorts of issues under housing production that don't necessarily always have to do with the SHI, but the SHI, the subsidized housing inventory. And if folks don't know what I'm talking about, we're going to teach you all of this, so don't worry. But basically what John is asking is, does it have to count on the state's list that shows how many units? I'll just give you the brief 101. So you probably all have been at least hearing to some extent that community, every community in Massachusetts has a requirement to get to 10% of their total year-round housing stock is affordable. And that's what we mean. The list that I'm talking about is called the subsidized housing inventory. So the housing production plan does need to talk about that, and strategies do need to show, how you're going to increase your list, but it doesn't have to be only about that. So John, I hope that helps you just in general, and we can certainly get more into that as we go along. Does that help, John?
Yeah, it was less about what the specifics are, more about what the community is looking for.
Right. And okay, very good. Very good. So that's what we're here to find out.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. And then where did Julie go? I think Julie was next, but I don't see her on my screen anymore. Are you still here, Julie? Okay, maybe she dropped off. If she comes back, we'll have to just remember to get her involvement as well. All right, Noah, I think you might be up next.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was just going to touch on two brief slides so we all can make sure we're speaking the same language and say, like, what is a housing production plan? In some ways, as Jen touched on, it's really an opportunity to get to a lot of broad housing related issues, but we also have some state requirements, and the state outlines what needs to be in there. There's going to be an analysis, a data-driven analysis that Lynn and her folks are going to help us put together that's going to look at housing needs and assess how are the demographic conditions shifting, how affordable is Wakefield, and really breaking that down by income bracket and looking at housing costs. So that'll be a big part of it. And we'll share that with the community as well. Other pieces of it are looking at development constraints. What are the environmental and infrastructure and regulatory things that are influencing how housing can be built in Wakefield today? And it's less trying to say we need to fix or change this, more an assessment of that. that we can then discuss later on when we get to goals and strategies. And there's also a brief chapter which is talking about all the different groups and organizations in Wakefield and the region that might work on housing and housing, affordable housing in particular. These could be nonprofits, CDCs, different departments in the town itself, and how they can all work together to create better desired outcomes. And my favorite piece is the goals and strategies, which comes near the end of the plan, which is after we've done our research, we've done our homework, after we've put out a survey and spoken with the community in a few forums, we're going to, or at least in the first forum, then we'll put together some goals and strategies. And these will be ideas for how Wakefield can tackle some of the problems we've, or you've identified. And we'll write that up and then we'll share that with the community again to make sure we got it right. But what an HPP can do, as Jen mentioned already, it can help you make a roadmap for how to tackle some really big housing challenges in your community. It can also outline a production goal for reaching compliance with that requirement Jen touched on, the 10%. And what that means is later on, after the HPP is certified by the state, and if you're meeting your production targets, which say, let's just make up a number of 15 subsidized units a year, it gives you a little more control and say over 40B development if you're not quite at 10%. That's like a little wonky, and I'm happy to pause and explain it, and Jen can step in as well. But there's some of the regulatory pieces of the HPP that the state's going to look for and that are going to help with things like 40B development. But there are also so many parts of it that are really just thinking about housing affordability in general and what are the different things that Wakefield can do. That's not totally outlined by the state. You guys get to be in the driver's seat. We're here to tag along and help and provide information and resources and put the plan together. So I'm just gonna show you guys our really abstract project schedule. We're here in the groundwork phase. We're starting to do our homework and really kicking off right here in September with Lynn's firm. They're gonna be doing a lot of the homework piece of it, a lot of the heavy lifting on looking at the data piece I touched on. After that, we're gonna start drafting up a plan, and these are where we'll be having check marks with the checkpoints, excuse me, with the community to look at and make sure we got things right. And then there will be some presentations and eventual adoption targeting for March or April. I wanted to zoom in a little bit. This is a sneak preview for our next meeting. After we do our groundwork and get the housing needs assessment, we'll be doing some community engagement. That will be a survey and a forum, and 2 forums actually. Next time we meet, we're going to be talking about what the content of that survey should be, how to make sure we reach the right people, and how you all can help us expand the reach of it as much as possible. Something fun for this project we don't always do is a housing engagement toolkit, which is going to be prepping you guys for after the project's over, after Jen and Lynn and I are gone, how to keep talking about housing in productive ways and keep that conversation going, because it's not something that's over. An HPP is a 5-year plan, but things change, and it's always important to keep this conversation going. And I'm looking forward to working on that. So what I wanted to do now, we're touch on some of the responses that we got in that survey link, and I know not everyone was able to respond. So I think I also wanted to open it up as we go through these 4 slides, talking about our hopes and some other questions. If there's anything not on here, anything that you'd like to add, please feel free. So I'm going to slowly read it, and then maybe I'll ask people to clarify or chime in. This is me pulling out a few of the responses we got, trying to put those together. We heard on hopes for the plan, looking for ways to keep lifelong residents in Wakefield. I think we heard that already in our introductions. Also housing for low-income households, the affordability piece, and what really is affordable housing is something we'll touch on, particularly in the housing needs assessment. Community engagement is an important part of our work here at the firm. We really pride ourselves in doing our best to reach people who maybe are tough to reach usually, and making sure that there are multiple opportunities for the public to feel like they're heard and shape the plan. I like the idea of SMART goals. It's something we always strive for, and SMART is strategic, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. at the very end of this plan, we'll have a strategic implementation matrix that'll say, when in the next 5 years should this initiative be worked on? Who's going to be responsible for it? And oftentimes we'll make a tracker spreadsheet too, so that staff or someone on the committee or maybe a group that's set up, you guys even can keep track of it over the next 5 years and keep things going. And I really liked this final piece on here about illustrating the housing types that are needed and the financing to build them. It's a really good point and something that sounds like we have a little bit of expertise on the committee already. But talking about what will housing look like? It's such an abstract word, housing. It's going to be fun to talk about, particularly in the housing needs assessment. What does Wakefield have? What does it need? And then how do we build a bridge to get there? And so we're so excited to have Lynn and her team with us because they've got a lot of expertise in that. So I wanted to just pause here and say, are there any other hopes that anyone wants to chime in here to add to that? And we love to just keep track of this. So a couple months from now, we can check in and make sure that we're all on the right track. Cool. Well, feel free to just unmute and interrupt me. I'll just keep going if not. But would love to hear you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, Noah, if I could just interrupt super
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
I just want to make sure Lorna, since we know she didn't get the questionnaire, Lorna, if you
Good
have
idea.
anything to add, I just want to kind of highlight, these are some of the answers of the fellow committee members, but if there's something that's not on there that you want to add, we'd love to hear it. No pressure either, but I just wanted to point that out since you said you didn't get this. So you might be talking, but you are on mute.
I know.
Okay.
Nothing has come to mind. I was just kind of curious, is other surrounding towns, have they also been doing this housing productive plan? Because I mean, there's no town around for quite a distance that has affordable housing is for the most part. And I was just wondering if this is just a Wakefield thing to look into it, or are we talking about, other communities, building it
Yeah,
also?
A lot of communities do this kind of plan, and there are some real incentives at the state level to do it. Can have some more control if you are below that 10%, which Wakefield is. We're doing one right now in Danvers. As a matter of fact, we've done one in Salem recently, a couple of years ago now, I suppose. So trying to think of ones right in your region. Revere's a little bit further out, but we're doing one there as well. Noah, are you going to get into the SHI at all? Because I can.
No, I think that'd be great, Jen, just to
Yeah,
touch on that.
so right now, as of the newest SHI subsidized housing inventory, that's just the list that I mentioned before, that the state counts affordables in your community, affordable units in your community. And you have 1,005 units counted on that list right now. That equates to just under 9%. So it's 8.92% of your year-round housing stock, and that is about 121 units short of reaching that state goal of having a minimum of 10%. Noah also mentioned, if you show some incremental production, if you have this plan that we're helping you with, and it gets approved by the state, and then you produce some units, and we can talk through logistics of this if you want to understand it better. The bottom line is, if you can produce 5, let's just call it 57, it's 56.3 units. So I'm going to round up to 57 units. You can get a 1-year certificate, saying that some people call it safe harbor. Basically says your zoning board has more authority to deny unfriendly 40Bs that don't meet that you feel don't meet your local need, or impose additional conditions. I'm going over this super fast. We're going to go over it again, but I just wanted to give you that more specific answer. And I hope that's helpful for folks. We're happy to take questions. I didn't mean to pull the presentation away from you, Noah, but I know people had asked a little bit about that, and I just wanted to give them some answers.
I think it's great, Jen, and we planners get so jargony. It's just really important for us to remember to keep explaining things to folks that are just living their lives and not thinking about it all the time. Doug, I saw you're unmuted. Just want to make sure you didn't have a question.
Oh, no, I think you, Jen, sort of touched on it. I think with our likely plans, and Sam Elliott can probably speak to this even better than me, but with the planned developments in place, I think we would be over 10% is my guess within the next year or so, or year and a half. And I think one of the things, without a production plan, we can't apply for that sort of safe harbor issue because we don't have a production plan in place. That our previous one expired a number of years back.
Yeah, the previous one expired in 2020. We all know that there were a lot of things going on around that time. So we're taking it under now to try to utilize what was there before and kind of build onto that, although we have to technically start back over at the beginning with the state. If all units that are permitted actually get built, yes, we will be just over the 10% number based on the 2020 census. Again, that may change in 2030. We will go into this again, I'm sure, in more detail as time goes on. But just kind of to give some background, I don't want to get too much into the safe harbor component because there are a ton of moving pieces. But yes, we are very close to our 10%. We have been working very diligently. It will depend on the timeline of some of the other projects and when those are finished and as to when they can be counted, because they can't be counted until there's a certificate of occupancy issued. They are just kind of hanging out in this place similar to like a purgatory, that we know that they're a potential help, but they won't help, especially won't help if there are any pending projects right now that get filed, because the actual number of move-in ready units on our SHI is what counts in relation to other 40Bs and our 10%. And so again, it gets very, very in the weeds, hairy. But yes, there are a number of different benefits and other municipalities that have done them around the area. So I look forward to hearing more about what the group sees for us, as well as the data that kind of comes out of their research.
Lorna, I saw you had a raised hand. Just wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, I was just wondering if this, with the MBTA mandate, about having houses within half mile of the MBTA, won't these count towards our 10%? I mean, I would think that they should be affordable housing.
Yeah. Oh, Samantha, you go for it. You know more than me.
Yep. So we don't actually have anything approved yet for MBTA communities. That's the first part. The biggest caveat, I guess, is that, again, we don't have anything approved. There is a state limit of 10% unless you do an economic feasibility analysis. Again, I'm very much getting into the weeds. So if none of this makes sense, feel free to reach out. I can explain it in more detail later. But right now we're looking at utilizing the 10% that is permitted so that it'll be a wash. We're trying to see if there are other ways that we can incentivize it, but not require it creatively. But because we just don't have the capacity to turn around a EFA and work with a consultant in the time frame that we need to have it done by fall meeting, which is in like 2 months. So yes, it will help, but more so it'll just really not hurt. That's the best answer I can give you at this point. We do have inclusionary zoning, which allows us to help. That's what's helped increase our numbers so much. But again, we'll get more into the weeds on all this down the line.
Sorry, Sam, EFA?
Yeah,
What is that? I don't know what it means.
EFA stands for the economic feasibility analysis.
Okay.
And that's what the state requires to see if even though we already have a higher number through inclusionary zoning and it's been working here in the town, they still want us to do an EFA.
Yeah, no, it was just an acronym question to like.
Yeah, sorry. I rattled off what EFA was earlier. I just didn't note that it's related, or it's abbreviated EFA. So my apologies for that. Again, planners and government get very used to the alphabet soup. So feel free to ask what I'm talking about.
Awesome. All right, well, we've got just 5 slides left and then we can call it. I want to just finish going through everyone's responses to the survey or those that took it. Really liked these. What are you most curious to learn about the plan? The needs and wants of the community, obvious, something we'll be getting from both the research and the community engagement side of things. I really also liked this question, how to build consensus and enthusiasm for planning ahead. It's always hard to get folks excited about the planning process. And I think this will definitely be an ongoing discussion that we have throughout the process. and we'll have to brainstorm ways to get people engaged and excited about planning. How to make affordable housing in Wakefield better. There wasn't any additional information in here, but I think one thread to pull out is sometimes affordable housing is designated as such, but in terms of the price itself, it doesn't seem quite so affordable. And that's something we can talk about, are the different income levels that potential affordable housing can be set at. Seniors, this came up earlier in our introductions, a real need, and something that the data piece that we'll be showing you guys in a few months will help to document in particular. And finally, a bigger catch-all, what can be achieved through this plan and incorporate it into a larger vision for Wakefield? What's next? Going back to the housing plan isn't just limited to only affordable housing. Some things in this could contribute to future planning efforts or identifying sites that you might want to do a strategic plan on their own for. It can a big portion of it can be seeding future work to advance different things. So I'm excited for that, and maybe tying it back to the consensus building, hoping to have a good community conversation that gets people feeling like they're able to proactively be involved and what housing is going to look like, and having that consensus around it. It will be exciting. What are the greatest challenges? Two different respondents mentioned concerns about how new development could increase potentially municipal costs, like your infrastructure and schools, et cetera. So having a discussion and learning a little bit more about that, and there's some good resources I know that we can touch on. Someone mentioned that there was a sense that development of any kind erodes community character. And yeah, it does seem like a big portion of a housing production plan is going to be talking about different types of development and what types of development that maybe can be seen to create or enhance or promote community character. I think that'll be something we talk about, particularly in the strategy section. And we heard this a couple times already in the introductions, a perception that development's pushing out long-term residents and businesses. So what are the sort of stability actions down the road when we get to that can help make people feel like they're able to stay and remain in Wakefield? That'll be exciting. Any other challenges that maybe weren't in the survey that anyone would want to add right now? But no worries if not. We'll get to this and have a lot more discussions on this stuff. This is more just a starting point, not an ending point for sure.
I want to add one quick thing. I think one of the really big challenges is not just the concerns, but actually how to communicate that and how to get that information out there to share it. And so when there's a public meeting, or if somebody's having one of the committee members is having a conversation with somebody else, whether it's in a professional capacity, representative capacity, or even a public to public capacity, how do you have that conversation with somebody? What are some tips and tricks that to clearly communicate and help them understand the actual impact to the schools or the cost of schooling or anything like that? I think would be a really good.
Yeah, that'll be really great. And I think that housing engagement, or even communications, we can call it playbook, in that sort of second half of the plan will be really great to have. And we can talk through different ideas. It's great. Okay. Last slide just on surveys, and then we'll talk about next steps. The greatest opportunities. Heard this in a couple of responses, that downtown Wakefield and the areas in the immediate vicinity have some great potential. I think we heard that in our introduction as well today. Someone else mentioned that there was support for senior housing, for housing near the town center, as well as starter homes. So there may be concerns about development, but there is support for certain types that people feel are needed. And an opportunity to really listen to what the community has to say, and reflect solutions that the town's going to embrace. I think that goes back to consensus building and also finding the solutions that are right for Wakefield. And yeah, maybe just to reiterate, we really see ourselves as not being the ones steering this project. We're here to help you guys. We want to help you articulate and listen to the community as well, for the plan. So it's not about what we think is best. It's going to be the most effective and lasting if it's what you all decide, as well as what we hear in our community engagement. So really looking forward to that. Any other opportunities before I wrap up this section of tonight?
Can I just ask a quick question because the
Yeah.
downtown Wakefield has come up a couple times, and I'm in opportunity. I'm just curious and about businesses leaving, just since we've got everyone in the group. And my question is it because there's first floor retail and empty businesses above? Are there vacancies? Because it seems like that's an area that everyone wants to concentrate on. And I'll be honest, I mean, I've been to Wakefield and I'm wondering, is it the area off of, Quantapowhat that has all the cute little restaurants? Like, what do you consider the downtown Wakefield? So I just have that in my mind while we're doing our research.
Yeah, that's the downtown specifically. Certainly right just immediately south of Quantapowhat. And yeah, no, I think there is some perception of increased some more vacant storefronts. But certainly all of the conversation around MBTA communities really has been sort of about opportunity and cost of housing development to support our commercial centers. I don't know. And anybody else want to add to that?
Chime in. I think just from a community standpoint, like young, old, from what I hear is a lot of the surrounding towns have really vibrant downtowns where you have restaurants and shops and retail. We seem to have, some great restaurants. Certain areas of Main Street and Albion are kind of flourishing or getting there, but then there are many empty storefronts. Some really popular businesses are being driven out of town, and kind of an issue with rundown buildings and landlords that it's better for them to take a loss on their taxes than to have their buildings filled.
Karen, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, yeah, Alex kind of really hit it. I've been here since I was 8, so 72. I don't think I ever remember a time that all of downtown Wakefield had unoccupied buildings. And we really don't know what the whole solution is or what it is, but we do have great restaurants, and maybe we need to promote being a restaurant town, or get the businesses in. Where the old bank was, they were going to put a brewery in there which was a great concept, and something fell through. A lot of speculations, but if you want to have people that can work in the community, live in the community, you kind of have to have the businesses for them to work here also. Yeah, so downtown Wakefield needs a lot of work, and it would be great to incorporate both things with it. Because there's nothing to offer. Everybody goes to other towns for everything. We have Shaw's for a supermarket, but if you're gonna go to any, we have a couple cute shops, but if you're gonna go anywhere, you're going to Reading or Linfield to Market Street, and we're not keeping up with what we need for that part of it. So, but yeah, we can work on that. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's really helpful. Let's just move it. Yeah, moving to the end of tonight's presentation. I wanted to talk about next steps. It's going to be more work between me and Jen and Lynn and her team. But a big piece for this month and next are potential interviewees that we can talk about housing, and we've got a whole spreadsheet put together of suggestions of ideas, and we'll be coordinating with Samantha on that front. And then LDS, Lynn and her team will be spearheading the data piece that I keep talking about, the housing needs assessment. We won't be showing that at our next meeting, but I'll have to check it. It may be the one after that or the one following. The big piece that I wanted to work on while I had you all here was scheduling our next meeting. I know we have a big group. We have people with different schedules, sometimes a lot of night meetings and sometimes not. And I wanted to ask, I spoke with Samantha about this, and we weren't sure if this Wednesday of the month would work, but if something like the first Wednesday of the month for October, November, December, during the evening, during the day. Yeah, and this could also be a doodle poll too, if this gets to be too complicated. Realize it's a big group. I wondered, how something like the first Wednesday of the month, or excuse me, Tuesday would work for you all? Is the afternoon okay? Is there a preference for evening?
Yeah, and I guess what I would suggest, Noah, is we could take a show of hands. You know, if a daytime Wednesday meeting, first Wednesday of the month in the daytime would work, and then we can ask it can kind of be a little unofficial.
Yeah.
You just use your real hand if you want, or John, if you want to put your Zoom hand up. So just put it up if like a daytime meeting on the first Wednesday of the month is okay for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Could you give me like a time? Is it late afternoon? Is it when you
Yeah,
meet?
how
Should
about
be
how about
flexible. We're
some,
just trying to figure out if you
Yeah.
need an evening meeting or if a daytime meeting could work.
Yeah,
I
I can't do late afternoon. Would you look at maybe doing something over like a lunchtime, maybe?
Raise your hand if you would not like us to do a daytime meeting. A few of you. Okay. So now raise your hand if the first Wednesday in the evening can work. Works okay for you. Okay, not everybody. Most people. Looks like Sam, that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I already have another hearing that night.
I'm sorry, it does, that's fine for me. I had
No, I
already
meant,
talked-
I'm sorry, I meant the other Sam. Samuel.
Yeah. So I'm sitting at my work desk right now. I work for the town of Burlington and we work until 7. So I'm using some time to do this evening, but I don't
So
want
you
to.
work every Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Okay, so Wednesdays is probably not a good, if we want to get everyone, Noah. We might
well,
be
Jen,
better.
I looked
mean-
at Tuesday and that would work for us. How would a Tuesday evening work for everybody? That first one in October in the evening.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. I'm seeing a few hands and check everybody.
I don't think I'm seeing everybody though. Dawn, did that not work
Yeah.
for you?
I think Tuesday afternoons do not work for me, but Tuesday evenings certainly could.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking evenings, I think now.
What
Okay.
what time on Tuesday evening?
We're flexible, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., maybe 6:30 even. I'll make sure everyone can get home from work and have something to eat.
All right, I do have to hop off for another meeting, but
Mm.
I'm sure you'll figure this out. Maybe a doodle poll would work better.
Yeah, no, well, this is helpful because I'm going to take your hands that I just saw and come up with probably 4 different dates for October and November and December. And we'll just send it on, we'll send an email to everybody, fill it out, and we'll just pick the one that the most people can go to. And if it's terrible, we'll do it a couple of rounds. We've done that for a couple of projects before, so we'll figure it out so we can make sure everyone can be there. But I appreciate you guys raising your hands for us.
And Noah, since I need to step off, I'd love if Lynn is willing to just give the folks a sense of like how do you do the housing needs assessment? What should they expect? Just kind of general, super general, give them an overview, if you don't mind, Lynn. And I'm gonna step off, I'm not gonna hear it, but I think that would be super helpful for people.
Sure. Karen has her hand up.
I'm
I don't
sorry,
know.
I have a ZBA meeting at 7 o'clock, so I'm gonna jump off and I'll see you guys at the next meeting. Thank
We'll
you.
see ya. Thank you.
Sure. So there's 2 sides to the housing needs assessment. There is the sort of the supply and the demand side. So basically, the demand side would be looking at a lot of different demographics in the community, what populations are growing, what populations aren't growing, what are incomes looking like, how do you compare those incomes to what housing costs look like. We look at rental pricing and so sort of we look at demand, but we look at supply as well. So we'll be looking at what are rental prices looking like? What are home ownership prices looking like? What is your current inventory, looking like? And then we essentially marry supply and demand to see whether or not there's a gap between what people can afford and what people could purchase or rent, and what populations, sort of what's missing. And I think we've probably heard a lot about what you've said tonight is probably going to be very much in alignment with what our demographics are going to show, which is that you probably have a growing, a growing senior population. You have a young professional population that's having trouble getting into town. And that there probably is a need for housing at every single level. But our goal of doing the work is to quantify it on paper by looking at the demographics and the supply. And then the work that Noah and Jen are going to work on is to really continue the conversation that we've started here in this small group and hear it from, from a larger group as well. So we're hoping to contribute to the plan by identifying where the gaps and the needs are. And that will also dovetail with some of the interviews and stakeholder interviews that Noah's working on, and then hopefully dovetail into, if we start looking at areas of the community where you might want to put housing, how does that all work? How do, some of your questions, how do the numbers work? And it's going to be, it's going to be a team effort. If there's anything in particular that you're really concerned about, we will definitely look at what school costs are, what school age population is growing. But if there's something in particular you want us to focus on, I'm happy to listen to that tonight.
Thanks, Lynn. And I know folks might have to jump off because it's 7, but feel free to email Samantha for particular ideas that you might have. We're super happy to work with you all, and yeah, looking forward to this project. Any final thoughts before we call it a night? Yeah, Don.
Question about the 2015 housing production plan is, are we gonna, can we use any of the format or any of the structure of that? Or is the next one gonna look very similar to that? Or should we read through it to get some knowledge?
That's a really great question. And I actually had this thought. I'm sorry, so sorry I forgot about it. I wanted to assign some homework for you all to review the 2015 housing production plan. Just to skim it, because the real thing is there are going to be draft goals and strategies in there that have not been touched that might be important, and things that are different. And it's just important to know where we were, what is that, 9, almost 10 years ago. It likely the formatting will be different because we format things, but some of the content, like we touched on, like the data stuff that Lynn's going to be working on, engagement, some of that will be similar. But obviously there's all new data to work on. But I think most salient will be any goals and strategies when we get to that point that maybe were important then and they're important now. So if anyone has extra time to skim through it, we'll certainly be reading it.
It's on the town website.
It is on the it is on the town website, and I also can email out. I made a summary before I put together the RFP for the new housing production plan and housing needs assessment, and I'm happy to send that out. It kind of pulls out some of the goals and objectives along with some of the steps that were laid out, just to help you have some guidance, because I think it's over 120 pages, I think, and not necessarily the most riveting read. So that'll at least give you a place to start off on, and then you can kind of figure out what you want to read more about. And the graphics are also, I don't have any graphics in my summary, but there are some great graphics in our the actual 2015 plan.
That'd be lovely. I think it'd be great to read through it, and we'll be reading through the full thing as well to make sure we get everything. But I think if there's no further questions, I know Don, your hand's still up, but maybe we got to your question. You can expect an email from myself and/or Samantha tomorrow about that doodle poll, and we'll be in touch. We're looking forward to our next meeting about a month from now, and we'll talk a little bit more about community engagement. Feel free to reach out. You got my email if you have any questions. And yeah, again, looking forward to working with you all.
All right.
Anything else, Samantha? Okay, cool. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great evening, and yeah, see you in a month.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to meet you, and
Nice to
looking
meet you.
forward to it.
And just to note, the meeting is over at 7:03 p.m. So have a good evening.